Hey, it's URP here. So I wanted to spend a bit of time talking about TBill, the fact that I'm no longer in the LP, some of the decision making that went through my brain working through that process. Just need to disclose I have no professional recording equipment and I'm squirreled away in the back of my office. And now I start recording. It sounds like there's some construction work happening in the building. So good luck, and I hope it's easy enough to follow. So a lot of this video is going to involve me reading what's on the slides, which I wouldn't naturally do, but I know we have some non-English speakers, so I think helpful to have both and really work through the purpose of this presentation, which is not to foot the project, it's just to help create a better understanding of what I believe are some of the basic points about the LP, some things that I knew getting into the LP that I don't always believe are well understood by the community. I want to take a look at the multiplier NFTs and in particular the massive multipliers over the last 5 or 6 weeks, post some questions and suggest a path forward, as well as what would be my conditions for re-entry back into the LP. So I wanted to also clarify my modus operandi, my reason for getting into the pool. My thought process along that journey is about retention of the TFuel that I was originally contributing into the pool, and getting more TFuel out was the motivation, and I'd rather take that approach than trade into fiat. I've never been good at timing of that. My philosophy over the last few years in crypto has been buy and hold, and that way at least you don't lose your tokens as long as you find good projects. And having said that, I deeply regret not selling out of all my Theta and TFuel over the last 12 months and jumping back in now. My natural inclination is to question everything and plan for worst case scenarios, and part of that is helping me understand when I should be getting out or if I should be staying in with the project. Do bear in mind that I'm not currently a participant in the LP, therefore I'm not as wed to the success of the LP. That being said, I have no interest in watching the LP fail. I have a significant amount of TFuel outside of the pool, and I believe that there would be a systemic risk to TFuel if something happened to the LP, given the high percentages of TFuel, almost 20% locked up in the LP. Also bear in mind that I'm as guilty as anybody on shilling TBill. Well, they participated and managed to win the multiplier competition that was held back in March and April time. So since that process, obviously I've changed my mind on my participation in there. What the AMA don't say, I'm well aware that that's not grammatically correct, but I'm going with it anyway because it rhymes. So I found there's a lot around the Discord server on the AMA video that when we get into a conversation about what gives the rewards value, that we end up in a convoluted conversation around smart contracts, around rebasing and compound interest, etc., and analogies that I feel are difficult to understand for the layperson, and that might be because Degard is hyper intelligent and it all goes over our heads, but I want to sort of break it down to more basic principles. Locked TFuel gives TBill its value is the argument, and that is true in a sense in that we give it value by saying it's worth 50% of that which is in the LP. So it's, if we lock up half of our TFuel, then therefore the TBill is worth 50% of the TFuel that is now locked. That makes sense in principle, but it's the value of the TFuel attributed to the TBill that gives it the value. There is no intrinsic value in the TBill itself, and its only utility at the moment is used for swapping and compounding back into TFuel. I think that's a very important distinction just to have clarity on our minds. So through this process I managed to figure out who Degard is, and it's not my place to dox him. That's a choice that he may or may not make in the future, but I was able to lift the old G-Pool logo from his Facebook profile and also figure out that G-Pool actually stands for Guardian Pool, and I kick myself for not working that out sooner. And I've created the TFuel TBill scales, of which we can see TFuel outweighing TBill at the moment in terms of its utility and what's really desirable for the investor, for the participant to have in their wallet at the end of the day. Part 1, So participants bring TFuel to the pool. They're not bringing TBill. The smart contract itself and the creation of the TBill exists part of the protocol, but all investors into the pool are bringing their TFuel to swap for TBill. They're not bringing TBill to swap for TFuel. The pool does not create any more TFuel than the participants bring into it. Okay, so people are only playing with the amount of TFuel that the collective investors have brought to the table. Rewards are created in TBill tokens, which can be kept or they could be swapped into TFuel. And most users, we hear, swap TBill rewards for TFuel more or less daily as part of their compounding. So as part of this exercise, let's assume that no new participants and no exits are made from the pool, so that the amount of TFuel that we're working with is a constant. Okay, so there are no new people swapping TFuel into the pool, and there is nobody swapping TBill to exit the pool. Okay, as no new TFuel is created, the amount of TFuel held by each user will drop, allowing for TBill rewards that are swapped for TFuel. So I want to clarify what I mean by that statement in the next slide. So as of no new TFuel is created, the amount of TFuel held by each user will drop. Okay, that's a fact, and that allows for the TBill rewards to be swapped into TFuel. Using the prior example of a static TFuel rate within the pool, so no outflows, no inflows, let's use 1 billion for round numbers, half of which is activated, the other 500 million TFuel is locked away, and let's assume that there is a conversion ratio of 8 TFuel to 1 TBill. I know we're closer to 9 to 1 at the moment, but using 8 to 1, 500 divided by 8, the ratio would give you 62.5 million TBill in the pool. The 62.5 million TBill in the pool will produce rewards, and if we assume an average 2x multiplier across the pool, which must be fairly accurate, that would be producing roughly 200,000 TBill rewards per day. And that 200,000 TBill rewards per day, converted back at that 8 to 1 ratio, would be worth 1.6 million TFuel. Even if all participants swap that TBill reward for TFuel, there is still only 1 billion TFuel in the pool. It's important to emphasize that through this process, no new TFuel is created. Okay, there isn't 1 billion, 1 million, 600,000 TFuel all of a sudden. It's still static 1 billion. No new TFuel has entered the pool. So furthering that example, if I had 10% of the pool, which is 100 million TFuel, I would get 10% of the rewards, which would be 20,000 TBill, and therefore equate to 160,000 TFuel. So if all participants were to swap, I would technically lose 160,000 TFuel resultant of the swap and receive 160,000 by participating in the rewards and swapping them back for TFuel. So the amount remains constant, and it's important to just emphasize that no new TFuel is created in this process. This example brings up a couple of dilemmas. In one, that I hadn't accounted for fees, and therefore the swap transaction costs themselves would be resultant in the participant losing a little bit of TFuel a day, assuming that the number of TFuel in the pool is static. The example assumes no new participants and exits from the pool, and the example assumes that a multiplier average of 2x is applied across the entire pool, where in fact participants with a multiplier of less than a 2x, so 1x, 1.25, 1.5x, they would in this scenario be losing TFuel on a given day, even if the amount of TFuel in the pool were to remain static. A participant with a 3 or a 4x multiplier will be above the average of the entire pool, and therefore they would experience an increase in TFuel in this example. So there's no new TFuel being added to the pool, but a holder of a 3x or a 4x multiplier will ensure that they have a larger share of the rewards coming through in TBill. They can convert them back to TFuel and make a profit in TFuel terms on a day where there are no new inflows or outflows in the LP. That means that all the other participants with a lower multiplier than those guys will be offsetting that process. Okay, so they'll be the ones losing TFuel on a static day, where those with the higher ratios of the multipliers will be winning on a static day. Of course, the LP will never be static, as per the example on the previous slides. There will always be new people joining the pool, and people will be leaving the pool on any given day. So as these new participants join the pool, the existing participants benefit by receiving a share of their fees when they first swap their 50% TFuel for TBill. And on these days with large inflows, the fee share coupled with a rising amount of TFuel in the pool will far exceed the drag of TBill rewards being converted back to TFuel. So you get that great feeling, which I think we've all experienced from the beginning of the pool until 2 or 3 weeks ago, where the amount of activated TFuel that you have day by day is growing, and you get this euphoric feeling of making free money. But the inversion of this is also true, and we've witnessed that over the last 3 weeks in particular, of a downward trend of net outflow. So more people are leaving the pool over those 3 weeks, or more TFuel is leaving the pool is probably more accurate. And they're doing that by swapping their TBill back to TFuel. And then each remaining participant will see their TFuel amount decrease. So as people leave the pool, the amount of activated TFuel that you have in your stake will decrease. When this happens, they do benefit from receiving more TBill because they participate in the profits as TBill is being swapped for TFuel. The purpose of the last 4 slides was really to emphasize that no new TFuel is created within the pool itself. Your activated TFuel will increase as new participants enter the pool. Your activated TFuel will decrease as participants exit the pool. And I know that sounds a lot like a pyramid scheme, and principally it's very similar to that. I have ignored the nuances of the rebasing as well as the potential airdrop of a governance token that we know little about at the moment to help offset any impermanent loss. But principally I invested into the LP to end up with more TFuel than I put in, and I believe that's what most investors are looking for, and I'm not sure that most participants fully understand the risk of a declining LP and what that does to the TFuel that they've got staked. Now I want to move on to what I found was probably the most worrying part of the pool, and what caused me to decide it was time to leave: Great Merge. So to recap on Great Merge, it was a series of 5 lotteries that were ran over 5 weeks, so 1 lottery per week, in which participants could buy stickers, which we'll call tickets, which can ultimately be merged to create new 1.25x NFT multipliers for the pool. So multipliers that were under the level of all the other multipliers in the pool. These stickers were supported by Big Dog, Alien Like, Michelle White Dove, Teddy B and Digital Dave, and they nominated some great charities, and 60% of the proceeds raised went to those charities, or my assumption is that they are on the way to those charities. I have no reason to doubt that. And from these lotteries, each week, 8 of these tickets or stickers would be chosen at random, and the winners would receive a 2 times 2 million TBill multiplier. So a 2x multiplier at double the level of the existing highest multiplier, so for 2 million TBill rather than 1 million TBill. There would be 8 winners per week for 5 weeks, so 40 winners in total. It would be possible then to merge these winning NFT prizes to create massive multipliers, being a 3x 4 million multiplier, which required 2 of the 2x 2 million prize multipliers, or to merge 1 from each week, 5 in total, to create a 4x 10 million TBill multiplier. A maximum of 5 of the 4x multipliers could possibly exist, given there were only 40 NFTs created in total, and 1 of those has been minted so far. So yes, 1 4x 10 million TBill multiplier has been minted so far, owned by wallet number 1, as we'll come to call it, which is the largest wallet in terms of TFuel staked inside the LP, with approximately 10% participation in the entire LP. Okay, so it has managed to merge 5 of the 2x 2 million prize NFTs to create that 4x 10 million multiplier. But also it has managed to merge another 2 of the 2x 2 million prize NFTs to create a 3x 4 million multiplier. and it has managed to obtain another 2 of the 2x2 million prize NFT multipliers too. So in total, it's obtained 9 of the possible 40 prizes out of the lottery. So 22.5% of all winners have ended up in this wallet. So we need to investigate how that happened. It has 22.5% of the prizes. Did it by roughly 22.5% of the tickets? Nor does it need to win. I think it bought roughly 11% of the total tickets and managed to accumulate 9 multipliers so far, and so far is a key phrase as well. I suspect that there's one more on its way to that wallet. So how did the number one wallet in the LP manage to accumulate 9 of the 40 massive multipliers? Did it win them all? Short answer is no. It managed to win one time. The Teddy B massive multiplier, sticker ID 88811, with 4,323 stickers bought, it managed to win one of the massive multipliers. The remaining 8 on the list, and you can pause and copy the wallet codes and addresses if you need to. I'm happy to share this data with anybody who asks me directly for it, but 8 of them were won in different wallets. A couple of them were double winners, and very fortuitous along that journey. And wallet number 1 is now one massive multiplier away from completing the second 4x, which I suspect it will over the coming weeks. Okay, it's one thing to accuse that the 8 remaining massive multipliers were gifted to number 1 wallet in the LP, but can you prove it? So I want to run through my favorite example, and if you follow the logic of the example and that it's accurate, please trust me on the rest. It takes several slides to run through one example. If you need more evidence on the rest, then happy to provide it. I have all of that data together. So wallet ending 661, 88801 and 88808 from the Digital Dave series, so it won 2 massive multipliers that week. And we can look back in that wallet history, and if we go back 3 months, we'll see transfers from a wallet beginning with 0x2b4. So transfers in 40,000, 100,000 plus TFuel, and that 0x2b4 wallet is the number 1 wallet in the pool. Okay, I can appreciate that you'll be saying that that's 3 months ago. It could have been for anything. It could be just a payment in kind for a favor one day, or it could be something else. So let's look deeper into that. So if we go back 4 or 5 days, we can see a wallet 0x39 made a transfer of 90,000 TFuel into the wallet ending B66, which is that same wallet that won the 2 Digital Dave massive multipliers. Okay, so a different quantum of TFuel was provided into this particular wallet, the winning wallet for the 2 Digital Dave massive multipliers, just 4 days ago. So let's look at where that 90,000 TFuel came from. So now we're clicking on and going through into the wallet that sent that 90,000 TFuel to the wallet that then won the 2 Digital Dave massive multipliers. And just 10-11 days ago, we can see that number 1 wallet in the LP transferred 230,000 TFuel into that wallet. So number 1 wallet in the pool has transferred TFuel to this wallet, which has transferred 90,000, and then on another slide I'll show you a little bit more, into the wallet that ended up winning the 2 multipliers. So the wallet that we were looking at on the prior slide, then its last few transactions out 3 or 4 days ago was the 90,000 that we were talking about 2 slides back, as well as another transaction for 31,440 TFuel, and that is going into the wallet that then bought stickers and won the 88801 and 88808 Digital Dave massive multipliers. So having received the 33,000 and the 90,000 TFuel, this particular wallet went on a sticker buying spree and managed to win two of the Digital Dave massive multipliers and then transfer them straight to number one wallet in the LP. Okay, there's not much TFuel remaining in this wallet. You can pull up the wallet for yourselves and see that there was no compensation attached to it, attributed to this wallet in terms of thanks very much for the two massive multipliers. Here is several million TFuel. They were simply transferred after the wallet one to number one wallet in the LP. But let's look at what they mean, because you could be looking at this and saying that there's zero value attached to these two smart contracts. So opening up the smart contract, we can see a transfer from the wallet we were previously looking at to wallet commencing with 0x2B4, and the transfer of a NFT with token ID 88801, which was one of the Digital Dave massive multipliers. Let's look at the next smart contract. So looking at the next smart contract, we see the same from address, the same to address, this time a different token ID, and that is 88808. Okay, so both massive multipliers from Digital Dave that were won by that wallet were transferred to the number one wallet in the LP. Okay, and then I've posed the question of why was that intermediary wallet used several slides back to transfer the 90 and the 31,000 TFuel. Let's have a look at that again. So now we're looking at the last smart contract in the transaction list on the wallet that sent the 31,440 and the 90,000 TFuel. And it's important to note that that particular wallet won 88811, a TBill massive multiplier, the previous week and sent it to the number one wallet. So it won one of the stickers, sent it to number one wallet and sent the balance of the TFuel to another wallet, which then entered the lottery and managed to win two Digital Dave massive multipliers. And again, this particular wallet received no compensation in return, and so these weren't sold through the marketplace, nor was there an exchange of consideration on the blockchain back to compensate the winning wallet. So from an Occam's razor approach, it looks like Wallet 1 has moved TFuel to several wallets that have all managed to win in the lottery and have simply then sent the massive multipliers free of charge back to wallet number 1. So I think it's fairly obvious to suggest that they're all owned by the same player. So looking at that number 1 wallet in a bit more detail now, we can see that so far it's made a tidy profit for itself of approximately $2.7 million. It has activated TFuel of close to 55 million, which is half of the value. And so including the lock size, it's approximately 110 million TFuel total value, which represents 10% share of the entire LP. So it's a significant player, and it is the only owner of a 4x 10 million TBill multiplier, and it is extremely close to having the second 4x 10 million multiplier in that wallet. So URP, the rich get richer, and what's the problem? Well, I am a capitalist and I don't principally have a problem with a percentage share and quantities of TFuel and TBill owned by number 1 wallet, as long as they were obtained ethically and legally. But I do have a problem with how the massive multiplier may have come about. It seems that there is some gaming of the system that has taken place that has encouraged that wallet owner to use several wallets to win the prizes. And with a 4x multiplier, they will continue to pull away and gain more percentage share of the LP compared to other participants that do not have a multiplier at the level of a 4x. So if things are to carry on as a constant from today in terms of how these NFTs are distributed, the wallet's graph of ownership will produce an asymptote curve approaching 100% ownership over time. That's a very real reality for people who speculate that the LP will last for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, several years, that the percentage ownership, whilst they have the massive multiplier of 4x, and assuming that they convert back into TFuel and keep compounding, they will slightly over time eat out percentages into everybody else's share, to the point of almost conversion on 100%. So what are the things at this stage are worth knowing about the number one wallet? Well, that wallet and wallets linked to it have been engaging in a principle akin to painting the tape, specifically with regards to the 2x 100k multiplier market, by over the last several months pushing the price of them up and trying to encourage sellers to sell below the walls that they put in place and then simply buy off those paper-handed sellers. And Z-Form in the TBill Discord has compiled a lot of evidence of that. I've checked myself, I've got my own evidence of that, and it certainly has been happening. And controlling the most popular NFT multiplier series sets the price of all the other multipliers. If you can demonstrably coordinate and control the price of a 100k multiplier, you set the price of the 500k, you set the price of the million, and everything is just a derivative of the other. So if you can control one, you kind of set the price of all of them. And Wallet One and related wallets have more than 50 of these 2x multipliers remaining, and it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do now, knowing that they've got the 4x multipliers and theoretically have no need for the 2x 100Ks anymore. Another important point to mention is that the TFuel deployed, so it's got 110 million TFuel so far. Where did a lot of that TFuel come from? And it's important just to note that this wallet was previously the top staking wallet on TBill, and I've linked the wallet I used to stake on TBill with 145 million TFuel staked, of which Via has transferred the TFuel to wallet number one to start in the LP with. So some thoughts on all of that. So if wallet one has 10% of the LP and it has the only 4x multiplier, it has double the multiplier of everyone. I think there might be one 3x multiplier in use at the moment, but it has more than double participation in the pool. So it has 10% of the LP, but it's participating in approximately 20% of the daily TBill rewards. So Wallet One is stealing your lunch as well as your TFuel, and it certainly will continue to do so over time unless new participants in the LP accelerate. So I received more TFuel out of the LP than I ever put in. I staked to the LP for close to 2 months. I've since left the LP, so I got out more than I put in. And if we know that no new TFuel is created by the LP in itself, somebody else now has to get back less TFuel than they ever put in to the LP. So I've read several times in the Discord server that carry on regardless of market conditions and regardless of the in and outflows of the LP, and you will double your TFuel over 12 months. That's just maths. So looking at the APR and APY calculations, they are mathematically correct. However, they're based on the assumption that your original investment will not decrease. So the original amount of TFuel you put in will not decrease. Therefore, the net daily inflows must match or exceed the daily TBill reward conversions in order to sustain the amount of TFuel you originally invested. So the APR and APY of the TBill side are only relevant as long as the LP itself is growing. And over the last 3 weeks, participants will have seen some erosion of their activated TFuel. And if that trend continues, how can you possibly achieve the APR and APY that you believe you're going to get? Okay, if the trend continues of you losing daily TFuel, I guarantee you will not get the APR that you thought you were going to achieve. Okay, so it makes sense to me, but it needs to make sense to all participants that the numbers and the maths can be correct, but it really just depends on how you cut those numbers and what you're focusing on. And holding through only makes sense if the amount of participants bring in fresh TFuel, if you believe that they're going to increase. The community must demand that these smart contracts are audited and are open source. The project is built on top of an open source network, and relying on it being basically a fork of Ampleforth, and we should be happy with that. Stop talking about it simply isn't good enough, and it doesn't cost a huge amount of money to have a smart contract audited. And given the size of the LP, the numbers at stake, and the systemic risk to the network, given how much TFuel is tied up there, I believe the community must demand of Degard and G-Pool that the smart contract is audited. And the smart contracts deployed for the massive multiplier lottery draws should be audited as well. I find it hard to believe and low probability that the number one wallet in the pool managed to obtain 9 multipliers so far without paying for them, only won 1 and moved some TFuel around and got lucky in other wallets as well. It's possible, but not probable. The emphasis needs to shift away from these NFTs and the price of them. The pool will be much more stable and economically fair if NFTs were widely distributed and available. Yes, there should be some cost to them, but it shouldn't be running into the tens and hundreds of thousands of TFuel. The 6 to 12 month minting should help with all of this. But principally, whoever has the highest multiplier takes a bigger share of the pool on a daily basis. Preferably, these massive multipliers should stay as 2x 2 million. The 3x and 4x multipliers should be burned to protect the LP. And that may or may not be possible. I'm sure it wouldn't be popular for those people who have won some of the massive multipliers, but I see it as being one of the only ways to protect the long-term interest of participants. And the clarity about future NFT minting should be made before there's some 5x competition launched in a month's time. I'm all for raising money for charity, and these seem like great, worthwhile causes, but ultimately, investors need to protect themselves and know what they're getting into. And when I joined the LP, I thought we were done with all the NFTs. And then to have the 3 and 4Xs appeared as what's pushed me out of the LP. I'm not comfortable with it, and I think the community needs clarity on that. So I mentioned that I managed to identify Degard, and I'm not asking him to publicly dox himself. And if he has any doubt that I haven't managed to figure out who he is, I will say that his initials remind me of Tesla, and that should be proof enough. But the community should at least receive more knowledge about the team here, even if we're using avatars and pseudonyms and posting the job titles of these team members, these employees, and what their relevant experiences. And it's the only way to really discern whether you can trust a team, and preferably they do that once their identities are public knowledge. The participants in the LP deserve a tangible roadmap with clearly defined goals, objectives, and timelines. I'll get on to the use case for TBill shortly, but if you invest into an LP and you're effectively bringing a new coin to market, there should be a roadmap of the utility of that coin, of that token that you're creating. What are the deliverables for the team? What can the investors expect? Or is it simply just invest in the LP, we give you TBill, you flick them to TFuel, and as long as the new entrants keep rising, you should profit, but somebody will lose playing that game over the long term. And preferably there should be a full-time community manager and someone other than Degard answering questions in Discords, providing updates and feedback sessions to participants in the LP. So TBill has zero intrinsic value, regardless of what anyone's telling you. Its sole purpose currently is to produce rewards that can be swapped back for TFuel, facilitating the transfer of TFuel from some participants to others. Some people end up with more TFuel than they started with. Those people were typically the earliest or have the larger multipliers. And some people will end up with less TFuel back than they started with. Receiving zero is also a legitimate concern that participants must be aware of and understand. TBill needs a use case other than rewards that are recycled into TFuel. And some investors and users must want TBill more than they want TFuel, and that will lead them to swap TFuel into the pool in order to get TBill out. This is simply the only way that investors purely looking to increase their TFuel stack will be able to sustainably get out more than they put in. So what I'm saying here is that there needs to be people who want to use the LP in the swap in order to get more and more TBill because they're spending it elsewhere, not people that simply get rewards in TBill to compound back into TFuel because there's no new TFuel being created. So TBill needs utility. So this is the point where hopefully G-Pool would counter-argue and say that there is a work in progress and utility will be arriving shortly with the creation and implementation of G-World to give that intrinsic value to TBill. And I think the community deserve proof of happening. And we've got videos and some slides from November of last year, and investors need to see progress and receive regular updates. And G-World appears to be a huge project, and investors should have reassurances that it is being created and what the timelines and deliverables involved are. And currently it seems very caught before the horse that participants are acquiring TBill before we're close to have anything to spend it on. Therefore, the only function of TBill is to swap it back to TFuel. And that in itself is intrinsically the problem that leaves the LP more akin to a pyramid scheme than value creation. Okay, in closing, I feel investors are jumping into the LP in order to grow their TFuel, and what in fact they're really doing is jumping into an LP to support the bringing about of a new crypto token, and that is TBill, and bringing that into existence. More people need to keep doing that in order to allow the early investors off the train to swap back out again. So in principle, there's sort of nothing wrong with that as long as the participants desire the TBill token to come into existence and what it can offer. But for the most part, it exists to create rewards that are converted back into TFuel, and that is not intrinsic value. And there is no growth in TFuel by doing that. So we need utility. TBill can be a huge success, and G-Pool itself has been a strong pillar in the Theta community, and people need to understand the risks involved, and in my honest opinion, G-Pool need to be more transparent about everything from the team to the roadmap to smart contract audits and to the utility and where we're heading with G-World and the timelines involved. But for me, the whole multiplier saga looks and quacks like a duck, and I'm going to call that saga a duck for now, and that's for that reason I don't feel comfortable participating in the LP, in that I believe that the game is rigged to whoever has the highest multipliers, and I don't think that's in the best interest of the community as a whole, and hopefully something can be done about it, and there's still time to do something about it. Feel free to reach out to URP via Twitter at Theta_URP. I'm part of the Theta Research Squad TRS. You can hit me up that way. I'm fairly active on Discord as well. What else are you supposed to say on YouTube? Please like and subscribe, even though I don't intend to make any videos again. But I hope this was helpful, and please remember that this was not financial advice. So take care and good luck.